Hey guys, another flashback review, and I'm concluding the George Burns movies that I've seen with my grandmother, and that movie happens to be Going in Style. Going in Style stars George Burns, but I have to say I'm kind of thinking that it should not say starring George Burns. In fact, George Burns was pretty much very little factor in this movie. I'll explain. This film follows a kid who's basically being bullied. He's basically a wimp. He's basically looked at by many people, disregarded because he's not popular. You know, it's one of those type of films. The only person who sees the best in him, pretty much, is his family and his grandfather, which is played by George Burns. The first half of this film really pretty much was very well pasted. You get to see George Burns, his typical cigar-like manner, talking in his usual comedic roles. He is celebrating his birthday. I believe that in this movie he was 80 years old, and all his family members and friends was there, celebrating with him. In the process, they asked him to make a wish, and that wish became to one of the most interesting songs I ever hear him sing. He was singing to "He Wished He Was 18 Again." And that's where the premises come from. One day, they was driving. Him and his grandson was driving, and they got into a car crash. During that process, both his him and his grandson was holding hands, and that seemed to be enough to change their souls, which was kind of weird. The kid woke up, but only you hear George Burns' voice. But you don't hear, it's not George Burns, it is the kid. And now you're having a situation where he's alright, but George Burns' body is laying in a coma on life support. And this pretty much stuns this guy. He was like, wow, look what happened. And George Burns is pretty much, for most of the film, is pretty much speaking in his voice, but it's not him really doing anything. Instead, it's this kid. Now, throughout this film, I can tell you right now, the person who was portraying George Burns' character really did a good job. He really captured some of George Burns' comedic styles. He was walking like George Burns, smoking cigars, doing wine. A lot of stuff that you expect from George Burns, he was doing very well. And George Burns, for the most part, was just like, when he didn't speak, it's like, when you speak in mind, that's when his voice came to play. But make no mistake about it, this was all carried by this young actor, and I think that the young actor did a very fine job. As you can expect, this film pretty much followed through as George Burns doing a lot of, popular stuff, is getting attention of the people he's having. He's basically doing stuff that's catching the attention of the girls, and he's also doing stuff that's not making the bully not too very happy. In one case, he actually got into a fight with him, where at first he hit him, wasn't really expecting it, but when it came down the second time, he whipped some ass, and that's basically what's kind of fun, and everybody's looking at him like a hero. The message in this film, I can tell you, is hit and miss. I actually like the fact that George, the soul of George Burns, was actually giving him, the credibility, and the likability of his fellow peers. But at the same time, throughout the whole entire stretch of this film, about to the last quarter of the film, George Burns wasn't thinking about his nephew, who was trapped in his body and pretty much dying in his body. He really, nothing seemed to came to mind that, hey, I got to figure out a way to get myself back into my body, because he can die at any minute. It wasn't to the point where they were talking about pulling the plug that he realized, hey, I gotta save my grandson. He's about to croak. So I always felt that was kind of strange about that situation. Another thing I also find very interesting is that he didn't really seem to want to leave his body. That was the one thing I also found very interesting, because he was going to tell this beautiful young fiance that he was married. I mean, this fiance is four times younger than him. He's 80. She got to be at least 25. No older than 30. She's very beautiful, and it's like there's no way she's marrying for love. And it turns out that was the case because he was going to reveal that it's me. I'm it's not. I'm not the I'm not I'm not the grandson. I'm actually who I am. But in turn of events, she's actually coming on to him, and he hadn't even revealed his name yet. And he realized, hey, wait a minute, no, something's not right. And that's when he realized, hey, no, this girl's not for me. The ending, I can safely say it was okay. They, again, miraculously got back to their bodies after he realized that the family was going to pull the plug. He basically stole the body because they already pulled the plug, but he's telling he's telling his grandson, hang on, I'm gonna get you out of this, hang on. Ends up crashing into some glass door, glass window, and somehow, again, by holding their hands, their souls got switched again. I kind of find it funny because they never explain how this is possible. I mean, at least with some film, when you have like that kind of switcheroo, there's something happens, like a magical or a magical medallion or something that got a hold from like a statue. This one, it really just says is hold their hands, and that was it. That's all they really need. So I thought they didn't do a quite good job of explaining that part. And to be honest with you, that always did bug me. Is that what really caused it? Was that wish that powerful? And if it was, how did they got switched back? But anyway, they switched back. Both are okay. He comes through miraculously, no brain damage or anything. He's just walking around again. Basically, kicked the young woman to the curb. Basically, told his grandson, look, you got good confidence. You're gonna be fine. And in the end, because there was one more obstacle we haven't hit yet. His grandson had to go through a race bet. If he wins the race, he gets a couple of money, and he actually did win the race. The bully was gracious. He didn't punch him. He didn't do anything else, and he was actually surprised because he was going to shake his hand, and the bully just gave him the money and just went about his business. And so the film pretty much ended there on a pretty good note. I was now, like I said again, this was listed as a George Byrne movie, but I gotta tell you, it's not really a George Byrne film. George Byrne was a mild factor in it. He was there for the first 15-20 minutes, but throughout this rest of the 2/3 of this film, it was pretty much all the kid was carrying it, and he did a good job. I mean, he really did entertain me playing George Burns. I wish I got his full name, but unfortunately, it's not in my head right now. But for what it's worth, in this film, he really did his job. Well done. The story, hit and miss. The story could have been better if they would explain how the hell they was able to switch bodies, because like I said, they only said that he wished it, but it didn't explain how that actually happened by holding hands. They even explained how he was able to get back to his body by holding hands again, but they just basically it never really was mentioned, and it did bother me a little bit. The moral of this film is not very good. Like I said, George Burns' character, it was not concerned at all about going back to his old body. He was having fun. He was, joking around. Not one time was he thinking about, I got to figure out how to get back. I got to figure out how to save my grandson. It never really occurred until the very last minute. So to say that this film has some good moral values, probably at the end it did, but it was kind of irrelevant. Comedy, oh yeah, there was some funny moments in this film. It was very, very fun. I did enjoy the good moments that this film had. The ending, pretty solid. It was not terrible. It pretty much overlapped because it really was. This film is pretty much a bit longer than I expected, but it did end it pretty nicely, and I can't really complain about it. A thing I will say about this film, it is a bit dated. If you guys are actually looking to see this film for yourself, good luck finding this. This film is pretty much out of print. This film I actually had to look very long and hard to find because the when I first saw this film, I actually bought this film for $1.50 at Pathmark. This is not one of the highly regarded films. There was a lot of films in Pathmark that I actually wanted to get in the dollar to something cents because I seen Black Cobra, so I bought that. And I saw 18 again. It seemed like it's one of those films that it has one menu. That's play and just the cast call. That's it. I mean, this film is not regarded as highly popular towards many people, and in many ways I can see why. It's not a very big, strong film. So if you're looking for this film, you probably have a better shot going to your local supermarket and looking at that old, 99-cent, $2.99 DVD bin, and to see if it's there, because I seriously doubt this is on video, on DVD, and any other major, DVD store. It could be, but I finally, I seriously doubt it, because, like I said, when I checked to see if this film was still available, it didn't register, so it's pretty much out of print. You may get it at Amazon, but I would not spend no more than like $2.03 max for this film, because, like I said, this film is very, very dated. When I saw this film, you can tell this film was wearing down. Somebody looked like they copied it from a VHS cassette and just planted it on the DVD, because it really did not have a great quality. And believe me, I had a lot of good DVDs with crystal clear quality. This is not one of them. But in any case, rating wise, I'm gonna give it 2.5. I'm giving it 2.5. Like I said, the moral really bothered me in this film. That's just me. A lot of inconsistency with terms of explaining certain things about how this has happened. The comedy was fun. I have no problem with that. The George Burns, when he was there, he was okay. He wasn't great, but he was okay. But like I said, the person who really carried this film was the young star, and I thought that, for what it's worth, he gets a lot of props for. So that's it with the George Burns film. I will say this. As I close this out, for those who don't know who George Burns is, I really want to know his work, his real work. My best suggestion to you is to go back to where he started his career. Go find some of the old radio programs that he was on when he did the George and Alan. I guarantee you, especially with his wife, Alan, she was funny. I mean, she was hilarious. She will crack you up. They made a very good 1-2 punch. George Burns was more of the setup man, and his wife was pretty much the finisher. And when she finished, you will be laughing your ass off. You will be crying. Those are the kind of comedies that he's going to be pretty much mostly remembered for. He's not really remembered for most of his movies, and that is basically because of the fact is that, with the exception of the one film he won an Academy Award, which I did not see, and that's why I didn't comment on it. I can't comment on something I didn't see. A lot of films, as he went down the line, they really didn't do justice for his potential. You can tell he's a genius because his stand-up comedy is actually pretty damn good. I mean, he did a lot of good stand-ups in his days. There was some that was actually shown on TV, and I was laughing at it. It was fun. To me, George Burns, he's a very unique character, even when he's not doing anything funny. I mean, just the stuff I remember him from. He got to be the only person I know that's been on Playboy multiple times. I mean, his facial expressions when he's on Playboy is hilarious, just by looking at him, and he makes those crazy faces. As he was surprised that he's actually in that predicament. Yeah, you know why you're in that predicament. There's no coincidence. And the fact that he has no problem explaining why he smokes cigars and what's his favorite brand. When a few years before his death, I believe he had like a concert ticket sale for his 100th birthday. He was going to do a concert of that particular day, and people were buying his tickets. They really was selling out. People actually believed that he was going to live to 100 years old, and he did. And when he did die, it was still a shock to many. I mean, people who followed him, people who loved his work, were shocked to see him go, because it was a guy in his age. He had a lot of energy. He really did have a lot of energy up to his final few weeks, because and I believe it started when he fell down the shower, fell down the tub and he hit his head, and that's when all the health problems started to arise. One of the things I noticed that when he did had his 100th birthday, he was very very saddened that he couldn't even attend. They did the party, but he wasn't even there because his health was deteriorating so rapidly. I think I think he died in his friend's arms. That's what the news reported it. And he died just only a few weeks after his 100th birthday. He turned 100, and a few weeks later, he passed away. And the only celebrity I know who had the same similar death was Bob Hope. He turned 100, and then a few weeks later he passed away. So, but to me, how I saw him, I think to me, if I wanted to know more about George Burns, you got to see his earlier shows and hear his earlier radio broadcasts, and you see the man at work. The one thing I also noticed about him is that he was still a player. He still had a lot of women, but he never really married again. He was still devoted to his one wife. And I know this because my grandma told me this, and I looked it up myself. And later on down the road, that he never was the same when his wife passed away. He was never he never really let that go. It did hit him hard, and he made a vow never to marry again. And which he didn't. He never really married again after that. He was he was that, he was that attached to his wife. Didn't mean to stop him from being with other women, but he never really married these women. And to be honest with you, he felt that there was only one true love, and that was the wife he not only spent his earlier days with, but basically worked with as well. There's a lot of interesting history about George Burns. I will tell you that it's a very, very strong history, and I gotta say, if you guys really want to know, besides from his movies that he's done later on in his career, go back where it all begins. Go check out his earlier work. Go check out his work with his wife, and you see firsthand why he was very much loved right up to the day to his death. Like I said, I'm not a big fan of his movies. The Old God series was more a miss than hit with me. The movie that he did with Art Carney, I actually liked. It was one of the only films that I truly can say that I liked deeply. This movie that I just reviewed with 18 Again, it wasn't really him that was doing it. It was really the young actor. And I don't remember seeing him do anything else other than stand-up comedy. So, for his credit, I think he did a good job of stand-up comedy. But overall, as a man, there's no denying he belongs in as one of the great ones in comedy, especially if you go by his earlier work. So, my salute to him, and to those and to his wife. So that's just about it, guys. So I'm going to return back to what I was supposed to be doing with Back to the Future, James Bond, a couple of James Bond reviews. But first I got to get to the Back to the Future. I hold it up for so long, and I had a reason why I didn't finish the Back to the Future trilogy. I will explain that in my next Flashback review. But until then, this is J77. You guys take care.